Imagine waking up to the sharp, metallic snip that echoes like a gunshot in the suburban silence, only to find your nosy HOA president trespassing in your yard, bolt cutters in hand, treating your property line like her personal to-do list. That's how my nightmare began, standing there in my pajamas, coffee spilling over my hand as I watched Karen Hargrove, the self-crowned guardian of cul-de-sac perfection, violate my fence without a second thought. My heart pounded not with fear, but with that slow-burning realization that some people wield rules like weapons, and today, she picked the wrong backyard to invade. It started innocently enough, or so the rumors went. I'd moved into Willow Creek Estates 5 years ago, a quiet corner of suburban America where the lawns were greener than envy and the mailboxes matched like soldiers on parade. But I wasn't like the others. My house was the old one at the end of the block, inherited from my aunt, with a sprawling backyard that backed onto a patch of woods. Nothing fancy, just enough space for my vegetable garden, a chicken coop for fresh eggs, and a fence that had stood since the 70s, keeping deer out and my sanity in. The neighbors whispered about me from day one. "That guy's a recluse," they'd say. Probably hiding something shady. It was all because I kept to myself after a messy divorce that the grapevine twisted into tales of me being unstable or antisocial. I heard the gossip at the mailbox, Mrs. Jenkins clucking about how my tomato vines were an eyesore, or Mr. Patel hinting that my coop violated some obscure pet ordinance. I ignored it, figuring silence was my shield. But inside, I observed everything. The way the HOA board meetings turned into echo chambers of petty grievances, how they'd find someone for a mismatched doormat while ignoring real issues like potholes. And at the helm was Karen Hargrove, the HOA president who'd clawed her way to power by promising order and harmony. But really, she thrived on control. She was the type who smiled sweetly at block parties while noting every infraction in her mental ledger. 50-something, perfectly coiffed hair, always in khaki capris and a vest that screamed, "I'm in charge." Her husband was a retired accountant who nodded along like a bobblehead, but everyone knew she ran the show. She quoted bylaws like scripture, all while her own yard had those tacky flamingo statues that somehow got a pass. I stayed quiet, tending my garden, but I knew one day her gaze would land on me. The whispers turned to outright slander last spring. It was over something trivial. A windstorm knocked down a branch from my oak tree, and it clipped a neighbor's gutter. No big deal. I fixed it same day. But Karen spun it into a tale of negligence at the next HOA meeting. "Our community standards are under threat," she declared in that polished, condescending tone, like she was addressing Congress instead of a room of folding chairs in the clubhouse. "Mr. Ellis's property is a liability, overgrown, unregulated, and frankly, a blight on our values." The minutes, which she emailed to everyone, painted me as a hoarder with questionable structures in my yard. Lies, all of it. My coop was spotless, my fence sturdy. But the damage was done. Suddenly, dog walkers avoided my sidewalk, and kids crossed the street like I was the neighborhood bogeyman. I bit my tongue, documented everything in a notebook, dates, quotes, even photos of her own violations, like that unauthorized shed in her backyard. Patience, I told myself. Rushing in hot-headed would make me the villain they already thought I was. Instead, I watched, waited, and planned. Little did I know, Karen was about to escalate from words to weapons. That fateful morning, the snip wasn't just a sound. It was a declaration of war. I bolted outside, the dew soaking my feet, and there she was, Karen, bolt cutters gleaming like she'd polished them for this moment, standing in my backyard as if it were her kingdom. Her white Jeep was parked crooked on the curb, bumper kissing my grass like an unwanted hug. "What the hell are you doing?" I called out, voice steady but edged with that disbelief you feel when reality turns absurd. She didn't flinch, just clipped another wire on my fence, the one I'd electrified years ago to keep raccoons from the coop. Sparks flew, but she acted like it was confetti. "Mr. Ellis," she said, not even looking up, her voice dripping with that fopulite venom. "This fence is in violation of Article 5, Section B, obstructing communal sightlines. It disrupts the aesthetic flow of the neighborhood." Aesthetic flow? My fence was chain link with wood posts. Nothing flashy, but it marked my boundary clear as day. "This is my property," I replied, stepping closer, heart racing. "You're trespassing." She finally glanced at me, eyes narrowing behind her designer glasses, clipboard in one hand like a shield. "HOA jurisdiction extends to all visible elements. We've had complaints about your rustic setup. It's time to modernize." Complaints? From who? Her own imagination, probably. She scribbled something, then shoved a pink slip toward me. A violation notice for non-compliant boundary markers. As she turned back to her Jeep, she added over her shoulder, "Expect fines. And read the bylaws, dear. Knowledge is power." I stood there, fence gaping like a wound, chickens clucking in confusion, and all I could think was, she's not just enforcing rules, she's rewriting reality to fit her ego. But I didn't yell. I smiled faintly, waved as she drove off, and whispered to myself, "Game on." Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood app. "Karen's doing, no doubt." Finally addressing the Ellis eyesore, she posted, with a photo of my violating fence, cropped to hide her bolt cutters. Comments poured in, "About time," from the yes men, "Safety first," from the fence sitters. But a few dissenters, "Isn't that his land?" She moderated those away. Of course. I kept quiet publicly, but privately, I dusted off my old toolkit from my engineering days, wires, timers, batteries. Nothing lethal, just educational. That afternoon, I rigged a simple circuit under where her Jeep had parked, connecting it to a hidden speaker and a low-voltage zapper from my coop's old system. Poetic justice, I thought. If she wanted to play with electricity, she'd get a lesson. The next day, she returned unannounced, striding into my yard like she owned the deed. "Follow-up inspection," she announced to no one, poking at my garden beds. "These vegetables are too organic. Potential pest attractant." I watched from the window, sipping coffee. She got back in her Jeep, turned the key, and chaos erupted. The horn blared, the star-spangled banner at full volume, wipers flailing like they were applauding, and a tiny zap through the door handle made her yelp like she'd sat on a bee. She tumbled out, hair frizzed, face red as a tomato from my garden. "What is this?" she screeched, pointing at the vehicle like it betrayed her. I stepped out casually. "Must be a short circuit. Happens in old neighborhoods." She glared, but there was a flicker uncertainty. "This isn't over," she huffed, driving off with the horn still faintly tooting. Inside, I chuckled. First blood, but I knew she'd reload. The neighborhood buzzed louder now. Someone had filmed her Jeep fiasco from across the street. Anonymous post on the app. HOA Prez versus Haunted Jeep. Karen tried to spin it. Vandalism by non-compliant residents. Reporting to authorities. But the laughs were starting. People whispered at mailboxes, "Did you see her jump?" I stayed silent. But the rumors about me shifted subtly, from shady to clever. She didn't let up, though. 2 days later, she showed up with reinforcements. 2 board members, Bob and Sheila, in matching HOA polos, looking like budget mall cops. They marched to my gate, megaphone in Karen's hand. "Mr. Ellis, your property is now under review for electrical hazards and antisocial modifications." Hazards? From the woman who'd cut a live wire? I leaned on my porch rail, calm as a cucumber. "Morning, folks." "Coffee?" Bob puffed up. "Step aside, sir. We're inspecting." As he crossed the threshold, I flipped a switch, nothing harmful, just a buried sprinkler line that shot dyed water, turning his khakis neon blue. He slipped, landing in my flower bed. Sheila laughed before catching herself. Karen fumed. "This is assault." "Nah," I said mildly. "Just irrigation. Bylaws allow for garden maintenance, right? Article 3, Section D." Her face twisted. She'd been hoisted by her own petard. They retreated, dripping and defeated, Karen muttering about legal action. But her voice cracked. Fear of looking weak was creeping in. That night, she emailed the whole neighborhood. Urgent. Community safety threatened by rogue elements. Rogue elements? Me? With my tomatoes? The irony burned. Escalation hit like a summer storm. Karen, sensing her grip slipping, doubled down. She called in county inspectors, real ones this time, claiming my coop was a public nuisance. They arrived mid-morning, Karen leading like a parade marshal. "See? Chickens in a residential zone. Violation." The inspector, a burly guy named Tom, scratched his head. "Ma'am, this is zoned mixed use. Coop's fine." But Karen insisted, prodding my fence remnants. "And this eyesore," as she stepped forward. Motion sensors I'd installed triggered. Fake crow calls blared from hidden speakers, scaring her into tripping over a garden gnome. She face-planted in mulch, emerging with leaves in her hair. Tom stifled a grin. "Looks compliant to me." They left. But not before Karen hissed at me. "You're making enemies. Or friends," I replied softly, nodding at neighbors peeking from windows. The app exploded. Memes of Karen's mulch mishap, captioned HOA Queen dethroned by dirt. She deleted them furiously. But the damage was done, her authority was crumbling into comedy. She wasn't one to quit. Ego like hers fed on conflict. Next came the media play. A local news van pulled up, camera crew in tow. Karen, makeup flawless, posed dramatically by my fence. "We're exposing dangers in our idyllic community," she told the reporter, voice quivering with faux concern. "This residence traps endanger children." Traps? My sprinklers? The cameraman wandered too far, triggering a whoopee cushion buried under leaves. Loud fart noise echoed, crew bursting into laughter. Karen shrieked, "Cut! This is serious." But the footage leaked online anyway. HOA horror? Farting fences? Views skyrocketed. Comments roasting her. Karen versus Karma. Karma wins. Her board started fracturing. Bob resigned via email. Too much drama. She fired back with fines. $500 for disruptive audio devices. I paid none, instead mailing her a copy of the bylaws highlighted where her own flamingos violated height restrictions. Silence from her end, but I knew the storm was brewing. Tensions peaked that rainy evening when an official notice arrived. Eviction proceedings initiated for repeated violations. Eviction? From my own home? Karen had gone nuclear, twisting rules to oust me. I stared at the paper, rain pattering like a countdown. Time for the finale. I called in favors from old buddies, guys from my engineering club, armed with gadgets and grins. We built Plan Z, just beyond my property line, on public easement, a setup of speakers, lights, and an inflatable decoy, a giant pink pig balloon dressed in a tiny HOA vest, clipboard in hoof. Motion activated, it would inflate with a siren wailing. HOA overreach detected. Pigs might fly before you win. Signs in full Latin. Caveat Karen. Neighbors gathered, popcorn in hand, as word leaked. Karen arrived the next day, alone, brittle as dry leaves. She stomped toward the setup, face a mask of denial. This mockery ends now. She triggered it. Lights flashed, siren blared, pig inflated massively, her own recorded voice booming. Standards must be upheld, even if it means bending a few truths from past meetings I taped. She froze, the crowd laughing. No fight left. She deflated like the pig, slinking away. 3 weeks later, the HOA imploded. Members voted her out. County audits revealed her embezzling petty cash for enforcement supplies. My fines vanished. Jurisdiction redrawn to exclude old lots like mine. Neighbors apologized. Barbecues mended fences, literal and figurative. I framed the notice, hung it beside my coop. Peace returned, but with a lesson. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. So, tell me, was Karen the villain enforcing necessary order? Or did her blind authority make her the real invader? Drop your HOA horrors below. Who crossed the line first?